but I remember, yeah, just asking the doctor, like, is there anything we can do? Is there a cure? Is there a treatment? Like, do you know how bad it will get?
Yeah.
And he was just like, no, on all accounts. So especially with, my mindset in terms of my disability is progressive, it will only continue to get worse. So I think there's a huge time pressure on that in terms of my career. For sure, like I've failed more times than I've been successful, but I've learned far more from the times I've failed than from the times I've been successful. So I'm not scared of failure. I'm really open to it. I think, for me, that's just a huge part of the journey. It's a chapter in the book as such, those failures. So yeah, I think everyone says trust the journey, trust the process, but it's definitely the toughest part of the process, the knockbacks for sure. And they, I think that's what really tests how hot the fire in your belly is. How much do you want to fight for this? How much do you want to be resilient and bounce back from this? And but I think that's why having goals is so important. I'm a really big believer in setting goals that are so big they scare you because they'll motivate you, and then being really vocal about them because it will hold you accountable. And there was one point that early in my basketball career, my mum would travel hundreds of miles a week to just get me to different training sessions. And when I learned to drive, that was a hard pill to swallow. It was like, well, now I've got to do all this driving. What's this about? This is so tiring. But
So it's a huge pleasure and honour today to welcome an absolutely incredible lady who can be an inspiration to us all, who's represented Great Britain and England in all 4 sports she competes in: wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby league, wheelchair rugby sevens, and para ice hockey, winning both world and European medals for Great Britain in basketball. So it's with great pleasure to welcome Freya Levy to the show, to share her secrets and sacrifices of her professional basketball journey so far, and much, much more. So Freya, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. No problem at all. So before we start, so the listeners and viewers can get to know you a little bit better, my children have come up with 10 quick-fire would you rather questions. And because it's a family portrait, we have Sebastian, who's going to be asking you the questions today. So I'm going to pass you over to Sebastian, and I'll let him carry on with the show, if that's okay. Pass that over there. You ready?
Yeah. Would you rather game or read a book?
Game.
What's your favourite game at the moment, Freya?
Probably NBA on the PlayStation, so Busman's Holiday.
Right, okay.
But FIFA, NBA, yeah, it's always sports games, really.
Right, okay. FIFA's your favourite at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
They love a bit of FIFA, the boys.
Would you rather win $1 million or earn $1 million?
Ooh, earn $1 million, I think, definitely. Yeah.
Would you rather have a takeaway or eat out?
I think takeaway. It's nice to be home when I'm home because I'm not often home.
Would you rather be too hot or too cold?
Ooh, great question. I think probably too hot. Yeah, it's nice to get the sunshine.
What about you, Sebastian? Too hot or too cold?
I'd probably be too cold.
Too cold.
You can always layer up then, can't you?
Yeah.
Would you rather wear Nike or Adidas?
I'm a night girl. Yeah.
Would you rather own a Ferrari or a Lamborghini?
Ooh, probably a Lamborghini actually, which surprises me.
Would you rather dine with Anne Wilde OBE or Tanny Gray Thompson DBE?
Anne's probably going to kill me for saying this, but I'll probably say Tanny because I've had many dinners with Anne.
Would you rather listen to hip hop music or pop music?
Hip hop, I think. Yeah.
Would you rather watch an action film or a romantic film?
A romantic film. I'm a sucker for a rom-com.
Would you rather play 1v1 against Michael Jordan or Shaquille O'Neal?
Ooh. I'd probably say Michael Jordan because Shaq's a big dude and I'm sat down, so I'm going to lose that one every time.
You know what? Sebastian said exactly the same when he was writing them questions when he was putting them down, didn't you?
Yeah, I said I'd get knocked over.
Yeah, I would too.
Thank you very much for that, Sebastian. Right, you're going to leave me and Freya
Yeah.
to it now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you.
You too.
Thank you, Sebastian. Okay, so just for the viewers and the listeners at home, Anne Wilde, she was a British wheelchair basketballer who was part of the British Summer Paralympics in 88, 96, 2000, 2004 and 2008, whereas Tanni Grey-Thompson, DBE, she won 16 Olympic medals, including 11 gold medals, and holds, I think when I was looking with the children, it was like 30 world records as well. And she's also won the London Marathon 6 times as well, which is, they're all like kind of mind-blowing, like kind of achievements. And probably all the kind of hard work and the dedication and resilience probably resonates with you more than most as well. So some of the achievements that the ladies have kind of got there are just absolutely like kind of phenomenal. And like we said at the start of the show, it can be like an inspiration to everybody, can't they?
Absolutely. And the work they're doing off the back of that, to make sure sport is a safer place for all, and just general life. Tanni does a fantastic job advocating for accessible transport, and really inspirational.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. Okay, so let's begin. So as you know, the podcast is to shine the light on the secrets and sacrifices all families go through to allow their children to be elite level athletes, and something that's really close to our hearts at the moment with having 4 children currently on that journey. So my first question is, could you take me back to your childhood and your earliest childhood memories when you was living at home in Essex, and what life and family life was like back then for you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when I think back to my childhood, it's all about sport. Sport is such a heavy focus in it. And I grew up with an older sister and 2 older brothers, and my 2 older brothers were like my best friends. We were such a good team, and I just wanted to be just like them. So I played football and rugby from the age of 4, and just competed as much as possible. I think that was needed to survive with 2 older brothers. But a lot of my childhood memories will be around playing sport with them, and playing cricket in the garden and turning a fence into a piece of cheese. We got into a lot of trouble for that because we graduated to a hard ball. Sneaking through the fence to kind of our neighbour's garden. We played football there an awful lot after school. And I think, obviously they're boys, and they were all 3 of them were older than me, so that probably gave me really, really solid foundations as an athlete. But looking back, it was just about play. I just like to play, so I don't think I had any desires to be, well, of course everyone dreams to be a professional footballer and a professional rugby player, but I don't think I ever really saw that coming to fruition back then. It was just about playing.
Right, okay. Because I know when we was researching, so we do it as a family, so like the children get involved as well, and my 2 boys, they're like heavily into football, and they read that did you have a trial for Arsenal ladies as well when you was younger?
Yeah, so I had a trial with Arsenal ladies, I think June 2010, which
Cool.
Was just such a cool honour. It was incredible. And then in the September 2010, that's when I was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy. So it was a bit of a whirlwind, really. But grateful to have had the opportunity and to put my mark on it, I guess, a little bit.
Definitely. So would you say like your football and your rugby was your 2 kind of main passions before your basketball, or did basketball kind of come a little bit later on then, would you say?
Yeah, basketball probably come maybe in secondary school. We did a bit more basketball then. But football and rugby was everything growing up, a bit of cricket as well. I was that person that just did everything. I said yes to everything. Played field hockey for a bit. My poor mum on a rainy Saturday morning at every different sports field possible.
So do you know when you play, just kind of jumping forward slightly, when you play for East London Phoenix, what would a typical kind of day kind of look like on, say, match day? So the boys at the moment, they've recently just kind of coming to understand, having like kind of a diet sheet and kind of timings of when they should be eating food and when they should be like kind of refueling. So they're just kind of currently being introduced to that with their kind of like clubs that they're at. So one of the questions that we've been asking, like kind of our recent guests, is what a daily kind of routine is like for a professional athlete. So we had a professional footballer who played in the MLS. We had a professional rugby player on. So it'd just be quite kind of interesting to see if you had a match at say 3 o'clock in the afternoon, what would kind of timings be like for say getting up, and what would you have for breakfast, and how soon would you eat kind of your pre-match meal before you played? So they were just kind of keen to kind of understand and get an idea of what like kind of a match day kind of routine would look like for you.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think, and it's definitely something you have to pay, I don't know, more attention to is probably not the word, but as
Okay.
a disabled athlete,
Yep.
making sure that I'm recovering the best as possible,
Yep.
because, I'm already, struggling a bit with recovery
Yep.
because of my disability. So,
Okay.
but an average match day, yeah, get up, try and be as chilled as possible, make sure it's like not as stressful. If I
Yeah.
oversleep, that's like
Yeah.
game over. So yeah, try and get up at a nice reasonable time. Just simple breakfast, really, like egg on
Yeah.
toast, scrambled egg on
Okay.
toast, something
Yeah.
like that. Make sure we got fueled up, and
Yep.
then if the game was at 3, we'd be getting to the arena like 1 o'clock. So I try and maybe have my lunch before I get there, so that when I get
Okay.
there I can just focus and
Yeah.
chill.
Okay.
And for me, I try and keep it quite light,
Yep.
because especially sitting in a chair and
Yep.
pushing in a chair, everything's stomach heavy, isn't it? So I don't want to be trying to push with a belly full, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so I try and keep it nice and calm and chilled, and like light food, really. And
Right.
then
Okay.
after the game, it'll be protein heavy, yogurts, milk. Just make sure I can get as much protein on board in a good amount of time, really, to
Right.
recover.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay. So can you remember your first kind of like wow moment in basketball then? So we've had two previous basketballers on. We've had Danny Evans, who's represented like kind of Team GB. And one of the stories that he told us was when he was traveling. I think he had a tournament in Turkey, it was, for Team GB. And it was the first time where they'd kind of gone away. They'd all gone away in like kind of the team bus, and they were traveling to the hotel as part of the team. And he said there was just loads of kind of spectators, like kind of waiting, and people wanting like kind of autographs. And he said it was a nice kind of like fancy hotel as well. And he said that was the first time where he thought like, wow, this is something that I really want to like kind of stick with. And then we had Jory Davis, who used to play professional basketball as well in the WNBA. And she got drafted for Indiana Fever, it was. And she said she had like her kind of picture on the side of a bus. It was like kind of slam dunking, which we said like was pretty like kind of awesome and like really kind of cool. So she said that was like kind of her first like kind of wow moment. So do you have anything that kind of sticks in your mind where you thought, oh, yeah, this is quite kind of cool. This is like, yeah, wow.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be National Paralympic Day, so 2013.
Right.
It
Okay.
was 1 year on from kind of the Paralympics, so they had
Yep.
like an anniversary games, and
Yep.
we were playing Spain at the Copper Box Arena, and it was sold out. So that's like 7,500 people. It was
Wow.
bonkers, and
Yep.
we kind of comfortably won the game. Like, my
Yep.
basket wasn't a decider, but
Yep.
I'd like driven in, scored, got fouled, so got sent to the line for the free throw. And I remember just being sat on the line shaking, absolute wreck. And
Oh.
I looked up and my friend was like, just breathe. And when I scored the free throw, the crowd went bonkers. Like,
Wow.
it gives me goosebumps thinking back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that for sure was the moment I was like, I want to do this forever. This
Yeah.
is incredible. And yeah, that was the wow moment for sure.
Yeah, and it's those memories that you just can't get those kind of memories kind of back, can you? I mean, and it's through doing like kind of your professional sports where you can kind of create so many like amazing like kind of memories. So it's always really nice. I mean, like we've had quite a lot of guests on the show now, and it's always really nice to kind of hear those kind of wow moments that they may be like say 10, 15, like kind of 20 years ago for some of the guests that we've kind of had on. and the reaction that they kind of give, you can see that they like vividly just kind of remember it, and they're just so like kind of like proud and like really kind of happy that they've still got those like kind of memories. So it's always really nice to kind of hear the athletes kind of talk about those, 'cause it just brings a smile to your face, and it does kind of give you goosebumps when you kind of talk about it. So it's always really nice hearing stories like that. So they're always really nice. So my next question will be, and we've kind of semi touched on it. I normally ask if the athletes have had, say, like a normal kind of childhood kind of growing up. So when we've spoken to different kind of guests, they've mentioned about kind of not being able to kind of like go out with friends because they've kind of got training or they're competing, and they might have friends coming round in an evening once they've finished training, but they need to like kind of refuel, or they need to like kind of have an early night, or they've had to miss kind of like birthday parties because they're away kind of competing. However, as we've kind of touched on very briefly when we started reading up on your journey's been anything but a normal or typical kind of journey from the age of kind of 14, as you mentioned, when you was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy, which is a disease that causes like kind of the weakness and the loss of muscle mass, as we'd kind of read. Can you just take us back to when you kind of found out? Because as you'd mentioned, you'd had your like kind of trial for like kind of Arsenal, and you was kind of doing your rugby. Can you just take us back to then and how like kind of the sequence of events kind of unfolded?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, it was 2010. It kind of
Okay.
showed itself, I think. So the early 2010, maybe February, March, I was getting so much pain, like in my shoulders and my
Okay.
hips, and the doctors just kept putting it down to sporting injuries, growing
Right.
pains,
Okay.
the standard.
Yeah.
And so we were back and forth, and then it got to the stage where it was just kind of unbearable, really, and like shoulder
Okay.
dislocations, hip dislocations, like just
Wow.
it was just out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
So we went up to A&E, and then off the back of that, spent the whole summer holidays kind of in and out of hospital, getting poked and prodded, and and then in December 2010, on the 21st, we got the diagnosis of muscular dystrophy, and
Okay.
it runs in the family. So
Okay.
at the time, I knew my nan had it, my
Yeah.
uncle had it, my aunt had it. So, I guess it was probably a quicker diagnosis because of that. So we knew it was, prevalent, I guess, in our
Yeah.
gene pool. So,
Okay.
but but I remember, yeah, just asking the doctor, like, is there anything we can do? Is there a cure? Is there a treatment? Like,
Yeah.
do you know how bad it will get?
Yeah.
And he was just like, no, on all accounts. So for me, that I needed to hear that, I think, to know
Yeah.
that, okay, it's up to me. It's in my
Yeah.
hands. There's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
I just need to crack on the best I can. And I always think back and I think how much of a great blessing that was, at
Yeah.
such a young age to be told, don't take anything for granted. And
Yeah. Definitely.
that's 100% fueled my decisions, my journey,
Okay.
my crazy diary ever
Yeah.
since.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
I think you more than definitely kind of cracked on with with the kind of sports that you're kind of doing now. Obviously, like you've represented like kind of Team GB. I think you're very humble about the kind of experiences and the journey that you've been on with representing Team GB in England with like kind of your basketball and your rugby that we've kind of touched on. Because I mean, like we had George Smith on a while ago. So he was an MMA fighter. He still is an MMA fighter, and he was kind of similar. He was diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, which is an abnormal heart rhythm. So it was like a 4 to 5 hour operation on his heart. It was. And he noticed a similar thing in training. He found a couple of the camps just a little bit more kind of difficult. He was struggling a little bit more. He couldn't do what he'd kind of typically kind of do, and he went to the doctors a few times, and then they obviously diagnosed him with atrial fibrillation, and then he set about having his operation, but then he's literally I think it was May time this year. He just competed in his first MMA fight, and he was like he'd said on the podcast, he was 2 fights away from like the UFC, which was like his ultimate like kind of goal. However, now he's almost kind of starting from scratch. And then we've had Jay Elliott on, who we'd mentioned before we started recording. And he had 2 brain tumours removed when he was about 13 years old, and he went on to represent Team GB, and he's done these Olympic time trials and won like kind of nationals and things, all like amazing achievements. And I think from hearing those stories, I know you mentioned you just kind of cracked on. I think like the resilience and that intrinsic motivation to really want to kind of succeed and almost not feel sorry for yourself. There's something inside you that just wanted you to, well, like you said, just kind of crack on and do something as amazing as what you kind of could have done before you was diagnosed. And obviously you was at Arsenal and then you was doing your rugby, but then you've obviously gone into kind of basketball and rugby, and you've decided to do like kind of other like amazing like kind of sports as well. So for us, as we said at the start of the show, there's so many things that we can just take as being so inspirational on a daily level from like all the guests like yourselves that we have on. So we just think it's like an amazing like kind of story that you've been able to share really, and what you've actually done. So from being a member of Team GB under 25, who brought the squad's first European gold medal home, winning bronze in the World Championships, and then, as we mentioned, representing England in the Six Nations, and then playing basketball in the Premier League for East London Phoenix. All like really amazing, like kind of achievements in their own right. My next question will be, how do you kind of personally cope with the peaks and troughs? And obviously you've had probably more kind of peaks and troughs than most at the start of your kind of journey. So how do you kind of cope with that kind of mentally? Because I think it'd be so difficult for most people just to kind of think, well, I'm not going to be able to fulfill my dream of being a professional athlete, for instance. How do you kind of mentally kind of cope with that, or prepare yourself for that journey?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the powers of sport is those life lessons it teaches
Yeah,
you, because for sure, like I've failed more times than I've been successful, but I've learned far more from the times I've failed
yeah.
than from the times I've been successful. So
Okay.
I'm not scared of failure. I'm
Yep.
really open to it. I think, for me, that's just a huge part of the journey. It's a chapter in the book as such, those failures. So
Yep.
um, yes, of course, it's tough at times. And, when I've not made squads, I've been
Yep.
heartbroken and shed tears. And,
Yep.
they're sometimes hard to bounce back from. But
Yep.
I think knowing, like I say, the life lessons it's teaching you,
Yep.
knowing that, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, of course, it's gutting. But
Yeah. Yeah.
for me, the key is the team I have around me, 100%. So
Okay.
ensuring not just my teammates on court, but, my team off court.
Yep.
I got such an incredible support system, and I really have to lean on them sometimes through those moments. And
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, that 100% bounces me back.
Okay, and I know you've mentioned as well that Anne Wilde, who we mentioned at the start of the show, she's been like a massive kind of influential kind of figure on your journey as well. Is it like kind of seeking comfort from other professional athletes that you can almost kind of see if they've kind of done that, I can kind of do that as well. Does that kind of help as well?
Definitely, yeah. I'm always open and looking for those words of wisdom from those that have gone before. And
Yeah,
yeah, Anne is an incredible person, and
yeah,
she's been there for a lot of my basketball, peaks and troughs. So
yeah,
definitely relying on her at times. And
yeah,
my best pal played under 18 football for England, so leaning on him in terms of how do you cope with this, how did you make these decisions,
yeah,
especially those when you're aging out of juniors, that's a tough transition. So definitely lean heavily there at times. And 100% you got to use those experiences of those that have gone before to kind of shape how you want to do it, because
yeah.
yeah, it's not an easy journey.
No, well, and again, one of the reasons that we started this podcast was, as a family, we've not been in that kind of elite bubble, and we've got 4 children that are kind of currently on that journey. And as a family, I think when we started the podcast at Christmas, we wanted to know whether the journey should be so hard, and should it be like kind of so difficult. Because you'll watch, say, like the boys will watch the football, they'll watch like kind of the Premier League, and they'll see all the kind of favourite players, and they'll kind of get the match attack kind of like cards, and they'll see all the players on it, and you kind of see all these like nice kind of shiny, like kind of glamorous, kind of Instagrammable kind of moments almost. And we wanted to know whether it was supposed to be as hard as we was finding it, because we've had the boys that have been, say, rejected from like professional teams, and they've been released, and they've been like really kind of upset when they've kind of had the conversation with the clubs on like the way home. We've had like kind of weeks where like my daughter might be playing tennis away, and she might be away for like kind of 2 or 3 weeks playing tennis. So then we're not all together as a family. Then they've got kind of the training in the evenings and the matches at the weekend. So we always seem like we're always like kind of apart. And we was thinking like, we must be doing something really wrong, that it's like really, really hard. And there's been so many like kind of tears and like arguments, and it's quite kind of comforting as a family to kind of hear. It's not nice that other athletes have kind of gone through the same kind of situation and circumstances. However, it's almost reassuring as a family that, do you know what, it's quite a normal kind of path and a normal route to kind of getting your children to where they want to be. And it's not just a straight like kind of line up to the top of the mountain, so to speak. It is very like kind of up and down, and there's a lot of kind of pitfalls kind of along the way, and there's a lot of kind of tears, like we've kind of said as well. So it is always quite kind of nice to kind of hear those stories, and that's what we wanted to do as a family. We wanted to kind of shine a light on that to other families who found themselves in that similar situation, just to kind of let them know that they're not alone, and this is how it kind of is, really. Unfortunately, not to be too negative about it, but we just wanted to kind of paint a realistic and kind of true picture of how it is.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think everyone says trust the journey, trust the process, but it's definitely the toughest part of the process, the knockbacks for sure. And they I think that's what really tests how hot the fire in your belly is. How much do you want to fight for this? How much do you want to be resilient and bounce back from this? And yeah, of course, it's absolutely fine to sit in that sadness, and it's probably healthy to sit in that for a bit, because that just confirms what is your why. If I'm feeling this sad about it, like I must want it. So I think it's really important to kind of go through those troughs, and
definitely,
it makes the peak so much sweeter, much sweeter.
I smiled so much when you'd mentioned about trust the process, because that's one of my, if you ask my children, they'd probably say that's one of my favorite kind of like sayings or phrases that I say to them, like kind of trust the process. I think as kind of the children listening to like kind of mum or dad, they sometimes they'll think, oh, it's only mum or dad kind of saying it. So it's quite nice that we've kind of heard it off of some of the other athletes, because then the children will listen to it back, and it's like, oh, it's not just daddy just kind of saying it. Freya said it, or someone else has like kind of said it as well. So that's good. So as we've kind of mentioned, would there have been any times where you did feel like kind of giving up on the kind of journey, or has that kind of mental resilience and, like you said, like that fire in your belly been so kind of strong that it was never really kind of an option? Or was there any times where you thought it's just a bit kind of too tough or too much? And
yeah, 100%. It's mainly with my basketball career. I think obviously that's the I've been on the longest journey with that, and maybe seen the most failures, I guess, in that sense with my basketball career. And yeah, there's definitely been times where it's been uncomfortable to carry on, but I think that's why having goals is so important. I'm a really big believer in setting goals that are so big they scare you, because they'll motivate you, and then being really vocal about them, because it will hold you accountable. And when I think back the season 2018 to 2019 season, I just started playing rugby sevens. I just started playing ice hockey, and so set myself kind of a challenge to represent all three in the same 12 months. I was at the Active Essex Sports Awards, and they were kind of reading out my achievements, and I thought the gap between when I'd played for England in these new sports and when I last played for basketball was quite big, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I wonder if I could do it in the same 12 months.
Wow.
And then, you know, we had the under 25 World Championships 2019, and you know, every part of me wanted to be on that squad. I knew it was my last Worlds. I was going to age out soon, and I'd been dropped for the last Worlds and was devastated for it. So this one was huge on my list. I had to tick it off, and I was driving to camp, and I was just like, I can't do this. And I rung my brothers, and you know, we had a big chat, and I was like, I just don't think I can do it. And you know, and then Spotify shuffle comes on, and a decent song comes on, gets you right in the back in the right mindset. And you know, went to the camp, got my shirt, got my ticket on the plane, and then achieved my goal of all three in the same 12 months, which was just phenomenal. I felt unstoppable after that. That was the best feeling. And I think that's, like I say, that's the times it tests your why. It tests that fire in your belly, and of course you're going to get them tests. It's just how you respond. So again, I'm grateful for my team that I have around me to help me get through those.
Right. Okay. So then again, you've probably kind of answered this question, but would you say like your parents have sacrificed along the way as well? Because again, you mentioned about that team kind of effort and the team kind of circle around you. Again, we've had numerous guests on that. We've all kind of mentioned about their kind of the parents and the family making those kind of sacrifices, whether it might be not going on, say, like family holidays because they're away kind of competing, or we've had parents who they obviously don't spend like kind of as much time together because they're away kind of competing, or they've changed like kind of jobs, or they've moved kind of countries, so like the children could kind of play different sports. So would you say your parents have kind of sacrificed to allow you to achieve your dream, so to speak?
Absolutely, you know, like chief chauffeur, as well as just like emotional support. Not just for me, for you know, both my brothers were super sporty. My brother Josh was England Colleges rugby, and my brother Reese was I went to the Saracens College. So you know, a lot of traveling was involved in that, and a lot of you know, helping us get around. And I always remember, you know, pasta Tuesdays, because the boys would have rugby on Tuesdays, I would have football, so you know, we'd make sure we had pasta for tea on Tuesdays and things like that. But 100% there's been sacrifices along the way, and I will be forever indebted to them for that, and to ensure that, you know, we had, I guess, the best possible chance to follow our dreams. And there was one point that early in my basketball career, my mum would travel hundreds of miles a week to just get me to different training sessions. And when I learned to drive, that was a hard pill to swallow. It was like, well, now I've got to do all this driving. What's this about? This is so tiring. But I'll always be really, really grateful to them, you know, setting us up on our journey in sport.
Well, I know as parents, I mean, like sometimes being like really honest, and you're kind of setting off for like kind of a training session, or like kind of a match, or one of them's kind of traveling overseas to kind of play and compete. There is a part of you that thinks, oh, we're having to go away like again, but you would just do anything for your children. So you don't, you might kind of think like, oh, I could do with not like kind of traveling because of like work or being apart, or kind of the finances of it. However, you would just do kind of anything for your children, and to allow them to kind of succeed, and allow them to kind of follow their like kind of dreams. And again, as we've kind of seen with all the guests that we've had on, like you've just mentioned, that kind of circle around you is so important. And it does help when you've got such supportive kind of like parents, or kind of family members, or amazing people around you, like say Anne, for instance, who you can like kind of speak to. So yeah, it does really help and make a massive kind of difference. So when you look back on all your journeys, both kind of positive, negative, physically and mentally, would you say climbing the mountain for you has been worth the view?
Great question. I'd like to think I'm not quite at the top yet.
Right. Okay.
So maybe we'll, but yes, I do agree it's important to stop along the way and look at the view. 100%. And I think I am in a kind of period of my career where I am you know, having to stop and reflect in
Yeah.
order to maybe keep climbing, because you know it does get a lot, and it's a lot of pressure on your body, and
Yeah.
especially rugby, you know, it's a lot of knocks, and
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
home from training every night, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, my partner having to pick up the pieces off the back of that. So yeah, definitely is. It's important to stop and check in on the view, but I'll be incredibly grateful for my journey to date. And
Okay.
yeah, it's sometimes hard to say, you know what, I am pretty proud of myself. You know, it's easy to be proud of others. It's easy to say, oh, I'm doing it to make my mum proud, my family proud. But I know that she was proud when I took my first steps. It doesn't matter what I'm going to do after that. You know, she's proud. So I think it's a lot harder to be prouder of yourself, and definitely something I'm, you know, looking at now and reflecting upon. And the view is definitely worth it. You know, it's been really, really tough, but yeah, I'm just really, really buzzing. Yeah, really happy with where we are, and that's 100% what's going to push me to just that extra little bit to reach the top for sure.
So with that then, do you find it difficult to say celebrate those successes? Because once you've had one of those successes, just from kind of having a brief conversation with you now, it seems like there's always, do you know, something else that you're going to like kind of work towards. So if you've kind of had a major success, do you kind of celebrate that success, or are you always thinking of that next thing that you kind of want, so it's not as successful because there's always something like kind of further up the kind of ladder a little bit almost? Do you find it hard to celebrate the successes? I think that's what my question is.
I think more so earlier in my career,
Right. Okay.
because I was just so, you know, motivated, and you know, it's the next big thing. You know, it's I want to get to the Paralympics, I want to do this, I want to do you know, everything and anything. But I think now for sure, as I look at, you know, maybe the last few years of my career, it's definitely important for me to kind of learn that habit of just breathe and celebrate the success. And you know, of course it's important to set new goals and to keep pushing, but yeah, I think now more than ever I'm trying to learn to do that, to you know, celebrate those successes, to breathe, to, you know, enjoy the moments. Because yeah, I think especially with, you know, my mindset in terms of my disability is progressive. It will only continue to get worse. So I think there's a huge time pressure on that in terms of my career. And yeah, I think it's definitely important for me to now start breathing and enjoying those successes when they come, and it makes them sweeter for sure, because you know, winning European gold was a huge highlight in my career, but straight off the back of that, I was on a plane out to America as part of the Michael Johnson Young Leaders program. So I never really had that moment to just sit in that success and to reminisce on, you know, hearing the national anthem on top of the podium and all those goosebump moments. So I think looking back now, it's something I definitely want to do more of in the next part of my career for sure.
Oh, right. Okay. So as the show comes to an end, we do have a tradition, and we ask all our guests whether they have any favourite quotes or philosophies that have kind of helped them along the way. And one of our most recent guests, we had Gina Kennedy on, who's a professional squash player. She's ranked as number 1 in Great Britain. She's in like the top 10 in the world. And one of her favourite ones was the Michael Jordan quote, which I thought was quite kind of fitting for yourself with being a basketballer. And it was his famous one where he said he's missed over, like, say, 9,000 shots, lost over 300 games, and I think he'd been given the game-winning shot 26 times and kind of failed. And he said it's all those failings that have helped him kind of be the player that he is, which is similar to what you kind of touched on at the start of the show. So is there anything like that you've kind of followed, or that's kind of inspired and motivated you along your journey, that you could share with us?
Yeah, I love that quote. It's yeah, I remember at the Basketball Worlds, we all had in our locker room, we had quotes. The coaches gave us quotes to kind of inspire us as part, next to our photo in our kit, and that was the one that I got given. So I've always been a huge fan of that quote. I think also in my early career, we had a coach that used to say, you know, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And I think that's a good one to keep me accountable and keep me focused. But I also love, you know, the pain of a missed opportunity is far more than the pain of rejection. So when I think about, you know, going for a team or trying to be selected into into a team, and we got a big one this year. You know, it's a Paralympic year. I think, you know, the pain of not trying would definitely hurt far more than the pain of not being picked. So
Yeah.
that one always keeps me on track for sure.
Wow. Okay. Um, so as the show comes to an end, what's next on your journey? Are there any kind of future plans or kind of projects and things that we can kind of look out for? I know you've worked in the past with sports charity Penathlon to make more sport accessible with those with disabilities, and I know you're a big advocate for diversity and women in the workplace. You're a member of the LGBTQ community, using your voice to engage more in sport. So I know your timetable's like kind of stacked, as well as kind of still competing, which is why one, we wanted to get you on the show, but two, how difficult we found it to get you on the show because you're so busy. So is there anything that we can like kind of look out for in the future?
Yeah, I mean, this year we've got the Ice Hockey World Challenge coming up. So in I think just over a week now, we fly out to
Right.
Green Bay for
Cool.
the Para Ice Hockey World Challenge, which is really exciting. You know, last year we finished 4th, so this year we're really challenging for a medal. Which that would be a success I can sit and celebrate in for sure. Rugby League, you know, we're having a fantastic year off the back of the World Cup. Absolutely incredible to see the legacy off the back of that, and hopefully we're going to have some test matches in the end of the year. So to get my cap or my heritage number is a huge goal for me. In the future, you know, obviously I'd love to compete forever, but I think now it's that mindset shift to legacy. You know, what would I want to leave behind? I want to. Every athlete wants to leave the sport in a better place than what they found it. So that's what's really exciting about, I guess, being able to be in so many different sports. Ice hockey is incredible. We're on a journey to get female para ice hockey in the Winter Paralympics for the first time. So to be able to be a part of that history is incredible. Rugby League, again, like I say, off the back of the World Cup, just driving that participation. This weekend we've got our first ever women's, you know, event. So it'll be a women only event, which will be really cool to be a part of that. And who knows? I love setting crazy goals, but who knows what's next?
Okay. So Freya, thank you so much for being a guest on Elite Children, a Family Portrait. I'm sure the listeners and the viewers at home can definitely see they're not alone on their elite journey. And over the past months, we've been so lucky to have so many like kind of inspirational, motivational and kind of dedicated kind of guests like yourself who can inspire us in our daily lives. So thank you so much for adding to that today. Good luck with all your kind of future ventures and your projects, and keep up all the amazing work that you're doing to kind of engage and highlight the importance of sport and being active. And I'm sure with a mindset and a personality like yours, everything that you do will be a huge success. So Freya Levy, thank you so much for being such an inspirational and humble guest on Elite Children, a Family Portrait.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.